Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Accelerate the Modernization of Your SAP Landscapes in the Azure Cloud. I'm Kristen Tanner, Global Marketing Strategist for Proterra Technologies, and I will be hosting today's webinar. We really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today's educational session. Proterra is a leading global hosting and managed services certified SAP partner and Microsoft Gold Cloud Competency Partner. With many SAP customers currently running SAP HANA, S4 HANA on Azure, we hope you find value in today's session as we share how you can leverage the Azure platform to support your complete IT landscape, including your critical SAP systems. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Only our presenter phones are live. Your microphones have been muted by default. Our presenters will be answering questions at the conclusion of the webinar. If you have a question at that time, please type it into your Q&A function in the sidebar. If we don't get to your questions during the presentation, I or another member of the Proterra team will be sure to follow up with you directly. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and the link will be made available to everyone that attended today's session. Now, I would like to introduce today's presenter, Patrick Osterhaus, President and Chief Technology Officer for Proterra Technologies. Take it away, Patrick.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for that nice, warm welcome here. Thanks, everyone, for your time joining us here this afternoon. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the content in front of you right here at this title screen, Accelerate the Modernization of Your SAP Landscapes in the Azure Cloud. And I'm Patrick Osterhaus. My role here is Chief Technical Officer of Proterra Technologies. We'll be talking about these categories here today for the next 30 minutes. We'll do a really quick brief summary and introduction of Proterra. We'll talk about our key services, and we'll talk about what we're seeing in the market today and how that relates to this webinar. And what we want to importantly talk about is the key messaging for the customers to take away from this webinar. And we'll talk about the modernization of SAP landscapes using Azure technology. And then we'll talk about a few customer references, most importantly, to show customers that are already using this technology for their benefit in their businesses. So a little bit summary of Proterra. We were founded in 1998, actually in October 2nd, in a very few days. We're going to be coming upon our 20th anniversary. I'm speaking to you today in our headquarters located in Chicago, Illinois. We have offices around the world, as you can see in the lower left. We have offices in Europe as well as in India, Asia Pac, as well as scattered around in the United States. Our headquarters, as I mentioned, is Chicago, where I'm located, and that's where we have most of our executives are located. We have 300 employees scattered around these offices around the world. And as I'll mention in our business service offerings, AppCare, we have our service desk located in these multiple offices around the world. So that provides truly 24/7 follow-the-sun support for our SAP customers. We'll talk a lot about those services here in a moment. Our mission is to focus upon the SAP application stack and providing world-class services around the SAP applications for any location of a company, be it on-premise, could be in the cloud. And what we're here to talk to you about, especially today, is around the public cloud of Azure and all the work we've done in the public cloud for Azure for SAP. You can see those certifications that we have, globally certified by SAP, meaning SAP certifies 3 of our areas or offices around the world, and we are certified by SAP in these 5 certifications. As you can see listed here: hosting, mobile services, cloud, SAP HANA, and AMS. We'll talk a little more in depth about the services offering. This is AppCare, which are managed services, as well as FlexBridge. And FlexBridge is an important integral piece to the discussion today, talking about how to get to Azure and then how to maximize those capabilities of Azure for your SAP system. So we'll talk to both those services in depth. And you can see in the lower right are many differentiators of why SAP customers choose Proterra to host and manage their SAP systems. A little bit about our background working with Microsoft. We have a very, very close, long-term relationship. Actually, going back to our founding in 1998, we've been a Microsoft partner. I'm very happy to say that through the work and through our steady working relationship with Microsoft, we have reached the level of Gold Cloud Platform. And that includes many of these certifications here that you see here. So basically, we, in a nutshell, the certification, meaning that we very, very well understand the Microsoft service offerings, as well as the core technologies that we can bring from Azure into the SAP solutions. So you can see here are many accreditations working with Microsoft. So I'll jump right now into our key services with these two business lines, AppCare and FlexBridge. And to start off, we'll talk about these key services along the life cycle. You could call the software full life cycle management. And that can start here in the design phase. For any new SAP applications, companies today are looking for S4 HANA, new greenfield implementations, as well as any other applications that are being built anew. We help with that design phase. And this is experience that goes back to the early 90s for our core team. Have vast experience around architecting SAP, doing the sizing, looking at all the assessment areas that need to be considered for building out an SAP system, as well as the deploying. So building those systems, taking them live, managing them, as well as moving them once they're live. So we see a big momentum going from on-premise into Azure, into public cloud. And so we built a lot of our core services around supporting those efforts. So a lot of experience around the design, the deployment, and the running. And the running is exactly where we get certified from SAP to make sure that we can follow SAP's best practice, as well as all the recommendations to make sure we're maximizing uptime and minimizing costs for our customers running SAP. So extending these ideas on the key services, the key benefits of our AppCare services is to combine the full lifecycle management with the design, deploying, and run, as well as taking these core technologies, these core tenets of what Azure is built around, and applying that to the SAP applications. So within Azure, you can see all these great attributes of the flexibility, scalability, agility, the security model, efficiency, and getting outside of a hardware lifecycle obsolescence model where you can take advantage of all these out of the Azure cloud and apply that to the SAP. We'll talk more about these in more detail in a later slide, so I'll save that, but all these attributes come for any system immediately as it's imported and migrated into the Azure cloud. And we'll talk about how we do that here in the next few slides when we get to FlexBridge. But as a summary, in introducing both these business lines again, Proterra FlexBridge is our IT transformation acceleration platform. So this is the platform we use to manage a migration, do the full assessment, and the deployment of those assets and those applications into Azure. So we'll talk more about that, as well as our managed services on Protera AppCare around the platform and the full stack management we provide for SAP applications and all the levels of the stack. So again, back on this idea on the lifecycle management, we can, within FlexBridge, in our key service of FlexBridge, provide that full lifecycle management where, if you're familiar with the SAP Activate methodology, it's aligned, our services are aligned exactly with the SAP Activate methodology we can see on the bottom. And just as a high-level example, we can take for an SAP system that we're going to copy into Azure, or we could do a traditional database, let's say it's SQL Server, and we're going to migrate that, transform it to HANA, or we're going to take an ERP system and transform it to S4 HANA and move it to Azure. All these possibilities for an SAP system we can fully support and lead the efforts to do a very smooth transition. And that is done through this methodology, SAP Activate, with the steps that are shown here. So you can follow with the color coding of doing a discovery where we automatically and automate the assessment of what is running in the customer environment, including the network, the applications, the operating system and database, and looking at what needs to change, if any, and any of those dependencies. We're going to use that then to create a roadmap, and this can be for all or just one of the applications and systems that the customer is running. And we can talk about S4, we can then also, in the yellow phase that's shown here in Prepare, we can also do a deep dive in that assessment. So we can actually go into details. We can provide what SAP would call the readiness report. We provide this into a web app, into a GUI that's very easy to utilize. And this is basically your single stop for all of your migration activities to see status, for our team to actually perform the work, and for any communications to happen. It was all done within this portal. So think of this as an end-to-end tool that can provide the assessment, the migration, and the deployment of the solution. So this prepare phase is all done within the tool, and then we would apply all those learnings into the work that is going to be done for the pre-conversion to actually kick off the migration, which is the explore phase, to actually perform the migration, which is shown here in this darker blue, and realize, and then we deploy, which is the post-conversion on Azure, making sure the systems are all connected, making sure interfaces are running again, and we release that to the system. So that's the green phase here in Go. So that's following SAP methodology. We take the system end to end, and we have webinars on that. We've made a lot of new advancements for S4. So if that's something of interest, happy to do a demo. I'm happy to do an assessment for your customer, for your company. We can do that at any time. So happy to go in more details on that end-to-end process. On going back to FlexBridge and why, what's the reason why customers are interested in it, is we can talk about the reduction of costs simply by the utilization of automation, utilization of best practices from SAP as well as Microsoft for doing migrations to the cloud, as well as upgrades to SAP to S4 HANA. And from these best practices, we reduce the risk. So we were very easily able to replicate a migration for doing a proof of concept system, then doing a development, quality, and ultimately production, guaranteeing the same results each time. So certainly a reduction of risk, as well as a recording of all the processes and the steps that are taken for that migration and upgrade. And from this, certainly a reduction of complexity, being that we've done this so many times. These steps are simplified as well as shortened with being able to automate and recreate the same steps every time the migration is performed. And you see that with the increased productivity, being able to scale these up, being it's a software solution, and the increasing of visibility, which again, encourage you to do a demo. We can show this live. The increase of the visibility is our design principle of FlexBridge is that you're going to always use this tool as your one stop to get all communications, all information about the migrations and the deployment of going into Azure. So project plan as well as the task list is all managed from the tool set. Some statistics that we've seen from the many migrations we've done with FlexBridge, again, reduction of project timeline, the shortened downtime, which I didn't mention previously. This is through many technologies we've utilized to shorten even the largest of databases in SAP. We can do those downtimes within 12 hours. So it's certainly very capable that we can do that migration in a weekend for even the biggest jumps where we take a ERP 6 system, enhanced package 0, all the way to the latest version of S4 HANA, which in a few weeks will be 1809. So we've proven that with the technologies and our tools that we use, we can shorten that downtime just to a few hours. So that was a little bit on FlexBridge. I'll now talk about our last step in that align activate phase, is the managed services, the Go portion. As I mentioned, the Proterra App Care platform provides full stack management. And the way we perform this is with our ASCs, our App Care Service Centers, which I mentioned at the top of the webinar, are available throughout the world, providing true coverage 24/7, follow the sun. And we have full help desk level support within each area. We have level 1, 2, and 3 support levels. So wherever you're at in the world, you're going to have experts available who know your systems at any time. The support extends beyond SAP. As you can see on the left side, it's all integrated applications that work with SAP. You can see here the many systems that Microsoft provides, Office 365, as well as if there's any on-premise assets that are not yet moved to Azure, we'll certainly help with those migrations, but we'll also fully support those in a hybrid model until they get migrated. So you can see on the bottom where we have the customer data centers are something that we fully support. So we will fully manage and fully architect that hybrid solution. So we are providing you an umbrella of services during that phase that you're moving those services into Azure. That middle piece is abstracted, and I'll show you in the next slide all that involves. It's quite involved, quite a bit of services that are provided here. But think of it full stack management that is SLA guaranteed for performance, as well as performance of your system, as well as performance of our ticketing system and response and remediation to any issues that arise. And then lastly, the solution is not only managed in the Azure Cloud or on the customer data center, we can actually fully manage any processes and assets that you have at your customer location. So this can be in the plant or in your offices. We'll fully manage any of the services. And here's a sampling, shown on the right side with antivirus, desktop support, laptops, any of the networking support around web filtering, antivirus, firewalls, etc. We can fully manage all those. as I mentioned, that middle bubble is talking about application support, and this is an example of the many areas that we support. Going into that bubble a little more is the breaking down the Proterra app care, and this is the areas that are broken in within the stack. So you can see here on the very bottom, the infrastructure stack shows Azure, the cloud hosting, the compute. So basically taking care of that full layer. Now, our customers have some choices here, and some customers want to have ownership of doing the infrastructure as a service. They may choose that they want to manage the cloud services, and that is certainly capable in our model, where we will just manage that middle stack, then the technical AMS. So you can see the technical AMS stack and what's included there with the OS database, SAP basis, all the technical patches, all the design and operational setup of backup, DRHA, all those good things. And within those, you can see the performance reporting and such that's provided on a continuous basis. You can see on the left side then all the guarantees here. So SLAs for performance, the systems, as well as the tickets in the help desk, as well as all the guaranteed availability and business continuity objectives. So you can see all that's included on a monthly fee. It's also important to note that we have a very strong relationship with many SIs. So if you have a SI that you choose to recommend and still work with, we certainly accept that as a partnership, that we recommend that we would work with a strong functional partner at a customer that knows that environment, and we can fully support the technical side, and that SI partner does the functional. So it's a partnership, a relationship that we're very familiar with and we recommend for any customer. So a little example about our model of how we size systems. You can think of it as Tshirt sizing. So with that monthly subscription, we are going to take any size environment, and this is just a sampling of what it would look like. We talk about landscapes, not systems. So following SAP's best practices, we're not going to just have a dev system and then a prod system and size those separately. We're going to have it sized as a landscape, looking at holistically how that system is going to operate, and providing SAP's best practices and how they should be sized, how change management should occur, and how to best protect production. So there's many capabilities within Azure Cloud that we can bring to bear here to provide even better SLA guidance on HA as well as DR capabilities. So we would provide all those capabilities within this monthly subscription, and that's shown here with the left side of what would be covered. So just like to sprinkle this in the deck just to show the mass amount of capabilities in demand that is going to happen for S4 HANA going to Azure. We see tremendous movement into the cloud, into public cloud, into Azure, as well as tremendous adoption still yet to happen for S4 HANA. So we see that in the next few years, this is going to be something these are skills that are going to be really important for companies to be able to know how to migrate their on-premise systems, as well as how to convert existing SAP systems. It's called brownfield, when you convert an existing SAP system into S4, and improving those systems through the upgrade and conversion and migration into Azure. So we see this as a tremendous opportunity, and that was the big driver why we wanted to build FlexBridge as a software solution, so we could scale it up for the demand. So we see this carrying on with the market demands and what is driving adoption. We can see three different areas. One is certainly the alignment with SAP's roadmap and the end of support for the traditional databases, and it's within HANA and S4 HANA. So we certainly see that with SAP's roadmap, and any new development is on those platforms. So we see that as a driver. We also see, as those initial slides showed, the agility, scalability, cost optimization, all these great features of Azure and why cloud's being adopted. So we see those drivers driving cloud adoption. So those two big drivers are focusing companies to look at Azure, as well as when they're going to Azure, maybe there's some parallel activities they can do to upgrade SAP and go to the latest technologies. And then the other driver, which continues to accelerate, is around business transformation with mergers and acquisitions and spinoffs. So taking existing data, it could be in SAP systems or not, and putting that into new S4 HANA systems. So we see those all as drivers. with those drivers for going to cloud, going to S4 HANA, we have these three types of migrations. And getting really technical here, these are just the methods of how we would do it. These are, you can think of the term lift and shift, which is essentially just copying a system in the cloud, or you can do a HANA migration where you're going to switch out the database and or operating system, or this S4 HANA transformation, which you're actually doing the transformation of the business application, which is more complicated. And that's what we built FlexBridge to handle, especially handle the preparatory steps, to be able to handle that transformation. So that's again, it's not the focus of this call, but happy to do a demo of how we can help you in that area. So as we talked about high level about the advantages of public cloud with Azure and what it brings SAP customers, this is a little more in detail. And I think it's one of the best features a company can utilize when first looking at Azure is to connect your existing on-premise environment, be it if you're already on 365 or if you have Exchange and Active Directory already rolled out on-premise, you can very early connect that Active Directory and those on-premise collaborative systems, which you can see here, Office 365 or Exchange if you have it on-premise, connecting that into the cloud, into Azure immediately. So now you can take advantage of single sign-ons. You can have all these productivity gains for any system that goes into Azure. There's many powerful tools that are built into Azure, including SQL Server, the database capabilities, as well as the Power BI for analytics. So these tools are built right in the cloud that you can connect to SAP systems or any kind of data lake. For source of even non-structured data, you can do an analysis through Power BI and quickly get value out of the data that is harder to mine right now. So easy way to capture value very quickly after starting with Azure. And again, I should mention to connect in a hybrid model, there's many options. Some are shown here where you have a VPN gateway. So very quick way you can establish a secure private connection from your on-premise system into public cloud. And that's shown here with the VPN gateway. That would create the virtual network. And then once that connection is established and it's used, for many companies, that's sufficient for a long period of time. Some companies then also want to take the next level and guarantee SLA performance with a carrier, and they can do a dedicated connection with the express route. So that's an option for guaranteeing performance and failover within the network with the express route. This slide here goes back to the earlier slide when we talked about those tenets of Azure and the advantages of it, and it further refines this idea where this continuous innovation that's happening every day in Azure, where you see, and I'm sure we're going to have some big announcements next week at the Microsoft event in the conference, of the continuous innovation of instance sizes, space, the storage capabilities, the CPU speeds. And the great thing about the Azure cloud is you can capture that with on-demand instances just by simply stopping them and restarting them on the new instance size. So this innovation is continuously happening at a rapid pace, and you're no longer tied into this hardware, life cycle of at least 3 or 4 years having that same server, worrying about the availability of that one server. Now it's built into the cloud, and guarantees of availability are standard within the Azure cloud. So this continuous innovation is probably one of the most facets of putting any compute into Azure, because you guarantee yourself that you're future proofed, and whatever comes down the pipe, you can be ready to handle that from the SAP applications as well as anything from the operating system and databases. The agility and flexibility. This is talking to what I refer to as part-time systems. So you get a lot more options where you can take a system your users aren't completely using 24/7, and you can put them on a schedule where they're available just during the week. Or there's crazy ideas which within our FlexBridge platform, we can provide an on-demand capability to build quality as needed from production. So imagine you wouldn't even have a quality system. You build it as you want to do regression testing or a change schedule. You build quality as a copy of production as needed. So those capabilities, which would be really, really expensive in the past, where you have snapshot technology in a SAN on premise, and you build a lot of automation scripts to be able to do this. This is built in for the tools within Azure, and we can turn those features on within the tool set that we built. So these kind of capabilities are just standard within the Azure cloud. And as I mentioned in that previous slide, the integration, where the true power, where pretty much there's a saying of, the rising tide lifts all boats, and that's where I see the true value of this innovation, number one, and three, the integration of all the products within Azure. So you have all these great capabilities within the Azure cloud that you're going to be able to take advantage of once the compute's there. So machine learning, which is continually being improved upon, those applications can now mine the data and interface with SAP as an application. It's part of your service offering once you're there. And then the security and compliance, Microsoft can talk much better than myself about what are the advantages of Azure security over on-premise, but there are many certifications going into the most stringent DoD requirements, as well as PCI requirements for any kind of e-commerce. It's the best place to be for your compute. And lastly, and taking advantage of basically all of these attributes, it goes down to cost, where all these efficiencies contribute to a cost model where you can save money with capabilities that you don't have on premise. So I know we're coming to about 5 minutes left here. I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about the, tying in the services into Microsoft's journey into Azure. And this is from Microsoft's website, where they have broken up you could talk about the hybrid model, any compute that's running on premise today, there's the three pieces. So you can take an assessment, you look at that on-premise environment for all the assets the customer has that they want to go to Azure. So we do an assessment for that. Then you actually perform the migration, and then the optimization is the go live and the managed services behind that. So I took those three from the website, which is shown here, and mapped that basically into the SAP definitions of the methodology of SAP Activate, where you can see the assess phase is essentially the discover, looking at that environment, the prepare, which is doing a summarization of the discovery and what's it going to take to move those systems. So that you can see that as its own section. You can see the migrate as the explore, which SAP calls, that's the pre-conversion or the pre-migration. The realize, which is the actual migration itself. SAP has the phases of uptime and downtime within that phase of realize. And then lastly, the deploy, which is basically the post-conversion or upgrade. So those terms that SAP has maps very nicely to the Microsoft methodology on migration also. And then lastly, SAP used the term go for post-go live support. Microsoft uses the term optimize. So these fall in very nicely of how we've built FlexBridge to fully align with the methodologies of both companies. So you can use one tool set to align with both companies' methodologies. So I have a few minutes here to most importantly talk about our customer references and some really good examples of companies capturing the value of Azure. So we'll go into with ChromaFlow, a long-standing customer of ours, which we built our recovery as a service model. And this is another webinar that we provide details on this, but feel free to reach out to us on details on this. And typically there's always a question on recovery as a service. So hopefully someone asks that. Otherwise I'll make sure I cover that at the end. So recovery as a service is a very good service offering that we provide within the Azure cloud. And we also have a very recent go live with Bayou Steel. This is managed hosting and managed services, and this is an existing SAP customer that was a carve out. And so that's a really good example of those business drivers, a new company spin up and putting that into public cloud. And then Tate & Lyle is a longstanding customer. They're in the food services industry, longtime SAP customer, big footprint. They're moving their systems into Azure. So we helped with not only the migration, but also the management of the business suite on HANA, and also the business objects implementations there. I encourage you, there's on the Microsoft website, if you just Google or search within Microsoft, you'll see the Tate & Lyle case study and get a little more examples of that implementation. So got a few minutes here we want to dedicate for our Q&A. So I think we're hitting our timing there. I wanted to just mention Kristen did a nice job introducing herself, and some other people that are not in the call today, but these are all good contact numbers. So you can certainly reach out to any of us here, or myself, Patrick at Proterra.com. Very happy with any questions and follow-up that you may have. Also want to invite everyone to our party at SAP Tech. It's going to be on Tuesday, October 2nd. Serendipity and serendipitous. We have, you want to go over that, Kristen?
Sure, I can, absolutely. So like Patrick had mentioned, we will be doing an event that night, October 2nd, during SAP Tech Ed, 8 to 11 p.m. at Tau Nightclub. So stop by, grab a drink, network with Protera and Souza. Will both be sponsoring the event, as well as Patrick will be presenting again at the Microsoft booth at SAP Tech Ed. So be sure to look out for the Protera team if you're on site.
Yep, and very happy to do any of the demos. It's nice to see real data and it work, and happy to do those assessments for your customer environment. So please take us on those offers. So we have a few Q&As that popped in. So feel free to, if you have any questions that you can pop them in. There's a Q&A icon on the very top of the Zoom application. So feel free to pop those in. I have a few that started right at the beginning, so I'll cover those first. And true to form, almost every migration webinar that we do, a question comes around with the on-premise timelines and how long it typically takes. So the question here is on how long it would take typically to do a HANA migration. So I'll talk to both HANA and S4. So we can do typically a 9-week proof of concept. So that would be for even an S4 HANA system. We just started an assessment for a customer. So within 9 weeks, we can do that assessment as well as the actual POC migration into Azure. So within 9 weeks, you'd have that POC system running from that ERP system into S4 in Azure. From that POC system, then you could then further extend that with doing development and production and another production run most likely. So within that model, you could have that done within 25 weeks. We could have that POC as well as dev and production end-to-end, that migration performed. So that's the timelines. There is some caveats or factors that can speed up those timings. But by and large, that's our guideline of how long it typically would take for a mid-sized business. For a very large company that has many, many business processes that are going to have to be redone, or a lot of training that occurs, that the timeline obviously could be pushed out. And another associated question on the migration itself is around what systems are available for migration. So simply, SAP has done such a great job of handling many operating systems and databases for all the applications they have. So there's a lot of capabilities of, when you look at going to Azure, a lot of options. The best question is basically, where do you want to go to? What version of SAP application is your desired place to land? That then drives the strategy of how we're going to migrate it. But just keep in mind that mainframes, iSeries, Unix systems, all those that are non-traditional, they're certainly not cloud platforms, but all those platforms, which are the operating system databases that run on them, those can be migrated to cloud. Again, the strategy and the process will be different for those, but we certainly can do those. And for many of them, when I say many, good 90% can all be done within one step. So only one downtime, one training, one round of training for each of those systems for your business. So it's a very nice feature with the SAP tools that has been built that you can capture that. So those two are on migration. One came through on the other on disaster recovery in HA. So the question is on DR, what systems can be built to replicate or to provide coverage using Azure? So this question most simply can be answered if the operating system can run on x86. So that would be Windows systems and Linux systems. Those can be very easily set up as DR targets in Azure. So this can be on-premise, or it can be from a private cloud or another public cloud today. Those are all certainly capable. There is some caveats, I'll say, on the fringe of other systems that aren't x86 that we might be able to get to work, but the simple answer is x86 are fully supported. And then the other question on DR that came in is around what is the requirement from the architecture. I presume they're talking about the target as well as, I'm guessing, the connectivity. So I'll talk to both. So one of the nice features of DR in Azure is that you can utilize a model where you can size the target systems much smaller than production. So it's just by nature, it's much more cost effective. So that is one nice feature to take advantage of right away. The other concern is around network sizing, and the technologies here have continually been improved over the last 10 years since we've been doing DR into the cloud. In the past, I would highly recommend you probably have a dedicated connection, but now today that's not even required, where we can do that over a VPN, as you saw, like a private connection. As long as you have something that has a sizable, I would say, at least 10 megabit connection, throughput that's guaranteed, it's going to be good for most size systems for DR. So it's a wide range of systems that can be covered just simply by a not expensive network connection to Azure, and the targets can be sized much smaller than the prod systems on premise. So very good opportunity for cost savings with it. And the other thing I'll mention on DR is when you do that, you also have a very good capability to make copies of production at any time. That copy you could recreate then as quality in Azure. So it's a very nice feature within that architecture. And then the next question here, this is the last one I've seen, is around the other capabilities within Azure. What are the other features? So one of the things that wasn't really mentioned in the deck is around the activities that we can do in systems that are already live. So many of the advanced features around backups is a true innovation, where you can save on backups around snapshots and how often systems are protected and taken off site. And that's from a figurative sense in the cloud. You copy it to another place in the Azure cloud. So that's a nice capability where you can save and simplify your backups, as well as around any kind of lifecycle management. So doing testing of a system, for example, all these proof of concepts around doing a migration, doing patching of your system. The inherent features built in Azure where you can copy a system very quickly is something that really, it saves a lot of time for the technical team. And from that, we can then do those activities much more often. So it simplifies and provides a lot of value to the business to be able to do those at any time. And I think that is all the questions we had, and I think we're at our time limit as it is. So that's, I think, all the Q&A for today. I'll turn it back to you, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Patrick. So again, if anyone has any questions about Proterra, our services, FlexBridge, our Microsoft partnership, please visit www.proterra.com. We look forward to seeing those at TechEd, and we will see you on the next webinar series. Thanks again, Patrick.
Thank you.